Hello everyone, this is the fourth lecture of Advanced Drilling, PTRE 451545, Drilling Operation Basics. I think I wrote it wrongly at some point in the blackboard. I wrote Drilling Operations Basics. That would be a double plural. So only the last one word has to be plural. So Drilling Operation Basics. Last time we didn't get too technical yet. I think we are easing into the business of oil well drilling. In the undergrads, I gave them a long lecture about the history of drilling, oil well drilling, how it started, etc., etc. I think I spent 1.5 lectures on that, and then we went into leasing. In this one, I went straight into leasing, but you may want to look into the history a little bit. We looked into leases, language of leasing. We saw a bunch of basically different clauses that you can have, bullet points on the contract. Everyone can be negotiated. And basically you give and take, right? You give to take. The lease in general has to have some main items taken care of. Granting clause, consideration, land description, etc., etc. And the three categories it deals with is the conveyance, giving you the right, the operator, the right to drill in my property, the term that has to do with time, and the royalty. That's the sharing, the splitting of the revenues mostly, assuming that the operator probably would have to assume 100% of the costs. We talked about the difference in the US with the rest of the world is that the US allows private ownership of minerals, of mineral rights. And this makes the whole situation much more complicated. It makes individual privateers able to own oil mineral properties and lease them out. So it basically makes it it promotes the exploitation of those resources, and that's why that drove technology, etc., etc. Not yet. We're here. Yeah. Today we'll proceed with that, and we'll eventually start doing the technical stuff. Just a little bit before we start, I guess a summary of the history is that back in the 1800s, they were using whale oil to refine it to kerosene that was put in lamps. They were calling it illuminating oil. And they were putting it into the lamps to shine light into the dark, so people can study at night, etc., etc. And mostly it was used whale oil for that. Some people used oil extracted from coal, but it was a very hard process. And then there were some ships underground in the Pennsylvania area. And you can also find ships underground in Los Angeles, actually, on the side of the highway, which is basically what we now know edges of a reservoir making it to the surface. Like, you have an outcrop, a part of a geologic formation making it to the surface. You have reservoirs making it all the way to the surface, and you have like pools of oil, patches of oil underground. And what people used to do, they would take towels, soak them into those pools, and then take them as they are wet, put them on top of barrels, and wait until they dry into the barrel. And this is how they collected oil. And they did that because they understood that that oil, they called it rock oil, can be refined into something that can be used for illuminating purposes. And there was a lot of chemists back in the day who did a lot of work on the refining of that rock oil, as they called it. And at the same time, a lot of salt production, salt collection was made, and people started using rigs to mine salt. And there was this lawyer in Wall Street, actually. His name was George Bissell, and he had a partner, an older guy. I don't remember his partner's name. He started with E. George Bissell, who he was. I think his first degree was in geology, in chemistry or something. Or he had friends that were former classmates who became chemistry professors, and he was visiting them often, and in his old school, and he saw some samples of that oil from Pennsylvania, and then in his office in New York, somebody gave him a picture of a salt rig. And he added everything together and he said, how about we mine oil instead of collecting it from the ground with towers and stuff? How about we actually build a rig and we basically drill for oil or mine oil straight from the underground, straight from the rock. And he made a company with his partner. What was the name of his partner? One second. It starts with E. Or it has an E inside. Yeah, he went to Dartmouth, I know. Come on. What was the name of his partner? Anyway, I will figure it out. Wall Street together. Jonathan Eveleth. Anyway, so they made a company and they tried to basically get oil, mine for oil, and then they had to make another company, get more partners for a bigger project, basically. I think the first company was called Pennsylvanian Rock Oil Company. The second company was called Senegal. Senegal is the name of the Indian tribe local to where those ships were. And they had to hire somebody to do the operations for them. So they hired somebody who was a former railroad conductor. The reason for that is that a railroad conductor a former railroad conductor is allowed to travel with a train for free. So they don't have to buy his ticket, right? So it was an easy, expense-wise, easier to hire this guy. And they hired this guy who was calling himself a colonel, but he wasn't a real colonel, Edwin Drake. And this was the guy who drilled that well in this one. I think Drake is this one, this guy here. They basically drilled the well, and in 69.5 feet, they hit oil. And it was a wooden well. I think you can find it now in Pennsylvania. If you drive to Titusville, Pennsylvania, so they found oil, and they started producing oil from underground. And that area became a boomtown. A lot of people moved in, a lot of businesses, and it was tremendous sort of activity there for a while until the production from that area peaked 3 years later. And then 2 years after that, they started saying that they are running out of oil because it went down, declined. It was a reservoir that declined, basically. And that was how the first oil well was drilled. But that wasn't the type of oil well that you see today, the rotary one. It was the one that they use in construction places that goes up and down, cable tool rig. Then basically every ship here became an oil driller, and they were all competing with each other. And it was Rockefeller who basically had the idea: I cannot control the shepherd, so I will control downstream. I will basically get the monopoly downstream and then move the other way. And he basically got a refinery, and then he started slowly getting the monopoly on the upstream business too. Many years later, in early 1900s, this happened in 1859. So a lot of things happened at the latter part of the 19th century. In 1900, actually, there was a geology professor in Texas, University of Texas, called Gaffney, I think. And he paired up with a guy, he was a Croatian immigrant, Anthony Lucas, but it wasn't his real name. It was like Anthony Lucic, and it became Anthony Lucas. When he married an American lady and moved to America, and he was living in the north, somewhere here, somewhere Michigan area, sort of, and then moved down south, and he was a salt guy, a salt miner in I think New Orleans or something, this area, like Louisiana, for a while. And he made the observation that wherever he was drilling for salt, many times when he was drilling for salt, he found oil. So he started thinking that those two are related. So this guy. And he started thinking about what is the relationship between oil and salt? And he went to the professor in Texas. I think it's Gaffney, because there is a company named after him. It was Gaffney. And there you go, Gaffey, not Gaffney. Gaffey. And basically, he was they started making the relationship that salt acts as a trap for oil, because now you know that salt has very low permeability, so it creates a trap underneath it. So if you go for salt, many times you find oil underneath. Now he said, let's go the other way. We go for oil through salt, right? We look for oil where salt is. And he had this. There is this anticline in East Texas, actually. I drove from that area many times. When I was at LSU, I was driving from Austin to LSU, and you drive through Beaumont. You pass through a hill called Spindletop, and basically they thought that would be a nice trap for oil. And they started drilling there in 1900, actually. And they were again towards the end of their endeavor. They were running out of money. And they struck oil the last minute. And it was the first oil well in the world that was described as Gasher in early 1901. So that was like producing crazy amounts, like 75,000 barrels a day. But the thing is that the first well that was basically they used salt as a target, and then they also use a rotary rig, because they were using rotary rig for salt drilling back in the day, and that guy Anthony Lucas really knew about how to use a rotary rig, etc., etc. So the rigs that we use today, the rotary rigs, have a beginning in Spindletop, Texas, 1901, 1900s. And yeah, it didn't help a lot, that area. I mean, that area is crazy. I used to take my car for state inspection there. in those areas. And this is where Janis Joplin, the singer, grew up, Beaumont, Texas. Yeah. I think actually probably her parents or grandparents moved there because of oil, ironically.
All of those people are drug addicts.
Many of them are. Many of them are, I guess. It's not a terrible town. Actually, I wasn't stopping in Beaumont. I was stopping in Vidor, which is before that. I was getting ice cream from the Dairy Queen there. Vidor is okay. Vidor is okay. Anyway, so that's about. Of course, there's a lot of stuff happening in between. These are two main events, but the story goes very long. Yeah, question?
No.
Oh, okay. So where we finished last time is about the lease execution. So after you signed the lease, okay, you made the agreement, everything is okay, everybody agrees with. So now you are the operator, you have some responsibility towards the lessor, right? You're gonna exploit his property for oil and gas. It's your job to get permits, the necessary permits. You may want to bring electricity, you may want to bring some sort of utilities in that area if it's not very densely habitated. You have to basically also, if you find oil, you're gonna negotiate agreements for further development, depending on how successful you are, of course. And then here is the catch: is there is this clause in the leases that are always almost always there because of precedents, and I left it at the end. It wasn't the list, the previous list that I mentioned earlier, and that is the farm out clause. That means if you are in a lease and you want to escape, you want to run away without having to bear any penalty, you have to find somebody else to get the lease with the same terms and basically finish it off with a guy. That's called the farming out. You are the farmer, the operator who has the lease, and you are trying to find a farmee with 2E. Farming out and farming in, okay? The new guy is gonna farm in. You are this is the farmee, 2E, farmee. You are farming in. You are bringing a new operator, a second guy, who will take over your lease, which you are abandoning for whatever reason. And you are the farmer, okay? It's like you are married to somebody and you want to divorce, you need to find her a new husband, right? That won't be a nice one, but it's I guess an illustrative example. A farmer, farmee, and the farming clauses, related clauses are in the contract, always. It's a very, very American sort of thing on the contract. Yeah.
For if you farm out your lease, so the farming now, is it that the farming will now have another agreement with the lessor?
No, somebody else will come over and take your agreement that you already have, but you didn't finish.
Okay, so the agreement will now be between the new person and the.
Yeah, somebody you brought somebody in, a second guy who agreed already that is gonna follow up the same lease and write it off. When the lease expires, he can renegotiate, of course. Or this is for you to escape the penalties involved if you broke the lease early. That's the whole thing. And some people allow something similar in the apartment leasing stuff. If you have 3 months left and you want to leave early, you may bring somebody else to basically, it's not a sublease. It's like somebody taking up the lease. His name, the new guy's name is gonna be on. So if the new guy screws up, it's not gonna be your fault after that. Right? He took your lease that you have already negotiated. But it also helps a lot both sides because they don't need to negotiate again. Okay, they already agreed on the terms. It's just somebody else coming over to take it. That's the farming in and farming out that you need to know. So we have, how many well types do we have? Do you think we have?
Two.
Close, 3. So you have the wildcat, the exploratory well, which is like the first well in that region. 2 is the appraisal well, which is after you know there is oil, you want to appraise the how do you call it, the resource. So you go on maybe you drill a wildcat well in the best possible area. You got some samples, you found oil, etc., etc. Sometimes with appraisal wells, you go intentionally on the hard areas. You try to find the edges of the reservoir. Maybe you want to find, sometimes appraisal wells turn out better than the first one. Sometimes you find a second reservoir. Appraisal well. That's the second type. The third type is the development well, which is basically part of a project. Now, when you say you drill on a wildcat well, a couple of appraisal wells, and then you decide on what you found, and then you come up with a plan to develop the resource, you may use those wells as part of the plan. It's cheaper, obviously. Okay. So now we said we called you guys the operator, right? You are the operating business. Doesn't mean that you are gonna do the drilling, right? You are responsible for the drilling and everything. It's your wells, but it's not necessarily you might do the drilling, or you may contract somebody and drilling company out to do the drilling for you. And there are 4 types of drilling contracts, really 3, but yeah, there is well, it's really 5, but 3 main ones, 1 kind of, and then everything else combination. That'll make it 5. But anyway, 1 type of drilling contract, that's a company that's an agreement between you, the operator, and the company that has a drilling rig and a crew, right? It's an agreement between you, small operator from Dallas with 4 people, and neighbors who has an oil, several drilling rigs, or Transocean if it's offshore. Okay, day work is you pay them a certain amount of dollars for every day. Okay, so if they encounter a lot of problems and you are using the rig many days, extra days than what you plan, you're going to spend a lot of money, right? It's called day work. The other one is a footage, a specified amount of dollars per foot drill. That means we're going to drill 10,000 feet of well. It's going to be costing you, I don't know, $100 a feet. Okay, we might do it in 2 weeks. We may be doing it in 2 years. It's going to be the same price. Obviously, they want to drill it as fast as they can, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good deal.
You want to drill it as fast as you can, right?
Yeah.
But not the production people, because they're going to be dealing with a lot of formation damage after that. This happened a lot in 2007 when the price of oil went up and everybody was trying to drill as fast as they could, and they got some wells that were really crazy. Basically, there were some people doing reservoir, like fresh graduates, and they were a little bit arrogant, and the drilling people didn't like them, and basically they were like, forget about it, we just drill as fast as we can, and to make our money. The third one is turnkey, and that is basically they are gonna pay you a fixed amount for the entire job. And that is a very unique kind of contract because it puts all the risk on the drilling contractor. So this kind of turnkey contract you are gonna find in areas where the contractor is very, very experienced and very, very comfortable with drilling. Because imagine he's gonna get like, I don't know, $1 million for one well. The well may cost $10 million, and he might be $9 million in the hole. The fourth option is a service contract. And this is mostly for international stuff. I know, for instance, Schlumberger was drilling for oil, actually drilling for oil in Bangladesh in the mid-2010s, something like that. So purely service contract, you hire somebody to basically drill for you. It's actually I take it back. Huh?
If you hire an business, a service contractor to drill for you, who is in charge of the drilling, the rig, and the listening?
Yeah, the Bangladesh example was bad because actually that's where Schlumberger was acting as an operator, which is it's a service company acting as an operator. It's the opposite of what I was trying to say. No, it's like you hire somebody to do the job for you.
Yeah, I know, but we all know that for mostly some of the service companies, especially Schlumberger is not into drilling. Like they are into, let's say, okay, if it's about maintenance, but they don't own the drilling rig. That's what I mean.
No, they have.
Do they have a drilling rig?
They used to. Halliburton had a drilling company called Sperry. Yeah.
It's not making not into drilling.
They
Going to all these horizontal
maintenance, like,
they
and then
don't have drilling rig. I don't think.
Yeah.
when completing, if you come to completion.
Well, I thought if they have asked me, I would have said the drill. Don't know.
Well, they do a lot of stuff related to drilling. They offer services, but
Not
yeah.
drilling specifically.
Baker Hughes had a drilling company too. I forget the name now.
Right.
It was back in when I was interviewing. I forgot now the name, but Conoco, for instance, which is an operator, has its own rigs.
Yeah, I'm quiet. I'm over.
So it's an operator with rigs too. So they might sign a lease and do the drilling themselves, or they can sign the lease and hire somebody to do the drilling for them. Right? It's very, very easy. But normally, well, unfortunately, it's going to be a thing of the past these days, the way the things are going. But two rig companies used to be the case. Like my old drilling professor, his dad had a company, and he was like a fourth generation petroleum engineer. And they had like two rigs or something. And one brother was on one rig, the other brother was on another rig, for instance. There is a lot of service contract it can include this stuff. That's the thing, but you hire somebody to do it for you.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's why I was like, this number 4 is a little bit, and I kind of want to take it out, but it happens a lot, especially abroad, because abroad it belongs to the government, right?
Yeah.
So the government will hire a service company to do the job for them.
I think
Okay, you can go.
I think it's also because my lecturer then explained that I don't know, maybe it's the service professor session I said after they have done the service, they will first take their profits from the oil before they hand over.
Oh, we're going to talk about those. Those are
Okay,
the
that one is
production
different.
sharing agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, they do that a lot well, it started from Angola, no, Indonesia, but they do that a lot in the third world, a lot, and they cause a lot of corruption with it. Yeah, we're going to talk about those. But the fifth one, which I don't have here, is what everything is, and that is a combination of all.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing pure turnkey, there is nothing pure service, there is nothing pure footage, there is nothing pure day work.
So I think
What's the difference between what's the difference between number 3 and number 4?
Number 3 is that, well, number 4 can be a type of number 3. Because when you hire somebody for service,
Mm.
you sign a contract with them, how you are gonna pay them. It can be day work, it can be, you see, these 4 can include 1, can include 2, can include 3. Yeah. But it's basically you bring an additional player.
But I think
yeah.
for the main operators, especially in Africa, I can talk, let's say Nigeria and then Ghana. Well, you know, let's say if we come to ExxonMobil like this,
Yeah.
they will go and then get contract anybody to come and
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the international contracts in a couple of slides. It's different kinds. Yeah.
No.
Oh. It's different kind. It's related, but it's a little bit different because there you have the government and a local company, NOC, and then an IOC coming from abroad. And then you may have service companies involved as well. So drilling abroad, international contract types. So here, the resource belongs to the government, okay? And the government also has a company that is gonna have to be a partner on the project. It's representing the company, like in Algeria is Sonatrach, in Nigeria, what is the Nigerian?
NNPCL.
Yeah, no, the one that.
It's MP and
it is an NPC. They are the ones that monitor and then
it's not an NPCL. It's not a company. It's no longer really under the government again.
Yeah,
Or
but
the-
it belongs to the government, right?
Yeah.
It used to.
It
It
used
used
to.
to be under government, but now
Oh.
it's privatized.
Oh, okay, you went through privatization, okay.
Yeah. For Ghana, for instance, GNPC, Ghana National Petroleum
Yeah, yeah.
Corporation. So the GNPC, they are the ones that represent the government.
Yeah.
So the government take, so they take in the contract, let's say, if we are taking 15% of it, of our take in the oil, we also have a representative there.
Yeah,
But we have a Talo, which is coming from, which is British company. Talo is the main operator. And
okay,
then with this Cosmos,
okay,
Cosmos Energy. So Cosmos and then Talo, they are the guys, but Talo has the biggest share.
okay. So, okay, we can call it NOC in general. It represents the government. And then you have, let's just call it the IOC, the international oil company, who will do the operation for you. That's Exxon, Total, etc., the big,
BP.
yeah, big guys, international companies. Okay, what kind of contracts you can sign with them? The first kind of contract is the easiest one, the most common one is called concession. And that is, you come over, Mr. Exxon, you're gonna drill in this area. This is called the concession, what we concede to you. And you start producing, this much goes to you, this much goes to us, blah, blah, blah. We make some other agreement. You may have to use our own service companies. We don't want you to bring from abroad, so that we want you to get catering from us. We want you to use local people as much as you can, etc., etc. Everything is pretty clean, okay? And then especially when it comes to the revenue sharing, like we get 16%, you get 80%, 4% override, and then you basically bear all the costs, etc., etc.
But let me just come in. But
Yeah.
this, I think that is exactly what Ghana is into with our guys. But the question is, yes, government will always advocate for local content participating in the contract. Let's say, okay, they should get some of the local people to hire some of the local people to work on. But these companies are always saying, okay, yes, we are, but you guys don't have the expertise.
Yeah, but that's a different,
but
that's not part of the contract.
But in the contract, they also have an agreement that you train capacity building. Most of the guys probably, if they complete maybe petroleum engineering in Ghana, you can hire them and then go and train them in abroad and then use them. But some of these things don't follow.
Yeah, but that is following up with the contract and also the contract of design. I mean, it doesn't change the type of the contract, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first kind. Very clean stuff. The second one is that what we are saying happening in Indonesia first. And they do a lot of that in Angola. And it's basically a lot of it PSA happening in a lot of third world countries. My contracts professor really used to hate the production sharing agreement. And there is a reason why it breeds corruption. The way it's set up, okay, it basically says that, okay, you come over here, you are gonna exploit in this area, and until you cover your expenses, you are gonna keep maybe 50% of the revenues. And once you cover your expenses, we are gonna revert to the basically the 84-16 or whatever something else. The problem with that is that it eliminates trust. Basically, I'm a government person and I fly and I see the IOC engineer on first class and I'm flying economy, right? I remember this is the example he used for us. Basically, how do I know that he actually covered his expenses or not? Maybe he already covered his expenses and he's playing around. So you see, it eliminates trust. And yeah, sometimes they offer production sharing agreement because they want to bring people to their country to exploit it for resources. So it's intentional. That is fine. You know why you are doing it. Okay, it's like part of the deal. Okay, we give something to get something. But if you are doing it without knowing, that's where the problem comes. And you see that a lot in third world countries. Unfortunately,
I think they do. I think government prefer production sharing contracts because they don't want to be part of the risk.
pardon?
They don't want to take part of the risk. That's why they go into production sharing contract because they assume that okay, if you are drilling and you are not successful with the drilling, they don't have any liability.
No, that would be a service contract.
Oh, okay, it's different from this.
Yeah, it can include stuff like the production sharing agreement. The way the cost and revenues will be allocated, again, is negotiable. The difference of the production sharing agreement is that until the operator covers its cost is one contract, one set of clauses, and then after they cover the cost, it reverts to something else. And then basically the question is, I don't really know what the IOC is doing. I mean, they may be cheating, they may be corrupt.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
how will I know
and I
they're
have
covered?
poverty in my place and people starving. I mean, how do I know that they didn't cover their expenses and they are not playing around? You know, it gives you. It's like you have a wife that likes to go out a lot. How do you know that she's not being naughty? You know, with her friends. You know, it's not a good example, but this is what came to my mind now. It eliminates trust. It's like I remember our advisor, our professor, Dr. Malik, used to tell us it's the only thing. This is why marriages are working because there is trust, and you come and take the trust away with the production sharing agreement. But he was saying to us, if you do it intentionally because you know why you are doing it, you are trying to attract investment to your company. Okay, fine. But don't do it without knowing because other people are doing it, you know? Because I remember when we found oil in my country, there was somebody I knew him from the military. We went to the same high school too, and I think he stayed 1 year. 1 year he had to repeat a class. That means he was very smart probably. But anyway, he went to do a master's, he studied law and went to do a master's in oil and gas somewhere in England. And I remember he made a website on LinkedIn called Energy Enthusiast, something which was a weird name. And then he had an article called Why Would Production Sharing Agreement Work in this place, what can we learn from Angola? From Angola's model or something, which was like, it was very, I was like, that's not how it should be, I guess. But anyway, the third one is a joint venture, okay? The biggest company in the world for oil and gas, do you know which one it is? No. No. Huh? You said that?
It should be in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. What's the name?
Aramco.
Yeah.
Aramco, yeah.
What does Aramco mean?
The full name?
What does Aramco mean?
The full meaning,
Yeah. It means something.
Arabia,
Yeah?
whatever company.
Yeah,
Yeah, Arabian American Oil Company. It was a joint venture.
Okay.
It started in 1933 from, what was his name? It was a 26-year-old geologist, Thomas Barker. He went to Saudi Arabia to find oil. He was working for SOCAR, which is now Chevron. You know, Rockefeller had Standard Oil, and Standard Oil was forced to dissolve in 1911 into 34 different companies. The biggest one of those, or the second biggest, was SOCAR, Standard Oil of California. And it was SOCAR, Socony, which is Standard Oil Company of New York, Texaco, and Gulf. Or was it SOCAL, Jersey, Standard Oil of New Jersey, Gulf, and Texaco? Let me just see very quickly what happened. But this is how a joint venture is, a lot of companies joining together. Aramco joint venture 1930, well, SOCAL. I want to see who it was. Okay, 1933. SOCAL was the first one and the one that had the biggest thing in it, the biggest sort of stake in it. So it was, yeah, originally it was California Arabian Standard Oil Company, and then they got the other people in. But basically, okay, Aramco, our history. Come on. Gulf, no. Texaco. Okay, but the other one was Jersey. No. Socony. No. Anyway, in one of those two, another Standard, and then Texaco and Gulf. So it was basically 4 companies that eventually joined together and they made Aramco. Now in 1988, something happened that happens a lot in oil nations, nationalization. So the government comes over and says, generally it's a time of high oil price or high oil power. Maybe everybody else is having issues in the oil and gas business and you are standing strong. And they said, okay, I'm now buying, I'm kicking out the foreigners and we keep basically we nationalize. And that's when they put the name Saudi and became Saudi Aramco. But what you read, California Arabian Oil Company, it was basically SOCAL in Saudi Arabia. Then other people joining eventually became Aramco, Arabian American Oil Company. And then nationalization happened in 1988. That's why when they ask, when was Aramco founded? Was Saudi Aramco founded? The answer is 1988. Because it was, that's when it got nationalized. In Venezuela, the national oil company is called PDVSA, PDVSA, and it was founded in 1976, the first nationalization in Venezuela, and it went on. They have a lot of periods when the price of oil is high, and they call it basically that's when nationalization happens. When the price of oil is high, even if the government is inefficient at running an oil company, they can still make profit. Okay, because if it costs them 60 and they get 80, they still make profit. So the government can still run, and then we can throw the foreigners away and keep our own people, blah blah blah. But when the price of oil goes down, that's when they have issues similar to Venezuela had at the early portion of this decade, where there were people eating dog food in the streets in Venezuela, a country with the biggest oil reserves in the world. They call that period apertura, which means opening in Spanish. And basically, that's when the market opens to foreigners. You want the people to come in and invest, you know? And then when the price is up, you close down. Like 1999 is when Chavez took over in Venezuela, right? Or 2003, I don't remember. I think 99. And that was the last nationalization. The first nationalization ever of this kind, I believe, was Mexico 1938. That's when Pemex was founded, if I'm not mistaken. Iran, 1951, March. And then Venezuela, 1976. And then, yeah, a lot of examples. And sometimes there is nationalization, and then privatization, and then back to nationalization, etc., etc. Anyway, that's a joint venture, okay? Now, the thing with the joint ventures is that you have a lot of people in the venture, but generally only one is the operator. And sometimes the operator fails, needs more money, and he goes to his partners and they say, excuse me, you just said that we sat on the table and you said you are the best one to drill this well. And now you are telling us, so there's a lot of issues like that. So who will have to pay if they encourage these issues, the extra cost? The fourth one is a service contract. So somebody else does the job for you, and you pay him to do that. And you may decide whatever way you want to pay him. You may do a day work, turnkey, etc., etc. And of course, there is a fifth one, which is a combination, and that's everything else together, multi-phase contract. And the important thing here is that outside of the US, the mineral rights are owned by the local government everywhere. So it discourages hydrocarbon resource development. Under this regime, oil discoveries are de facto bad news for any landowner. You don't want them to find oil in your land. It would be a bad thing. You are going to bring a rig and they would basically take your property by eminent domain, what I mentioned earlier. If you can prove that if you sell us your property, it's going to benefit the community as a whole. So us having, the community having your property is more, outweighs the benefits of you having this property only, you are forced to sell it to the government. That's why the highways go straight and they don't go like this. And of course, people will push back, ask for more money, but eventually they have to basically get it.
Yeah, but if it is oil, they discover oil in your place and the government come and say, okay, hey, you're going to pay a lot of compensation. Yeah, a lot. So you can strike a deal after that, employ this my people, or even if I don't have the certificate, take me what's mine as a
Yeah,
man.
like what you said, it's a lot of war in Nigeria because most times they don't do anything for the local community. And
It's
those
going to
people, they
be.
blow the pipeline, they do.
Yeah, pipelines is a reason also for eminent domain. But sometimes when you drive, you see some homes in the middle of the highway and they make, like somebody, they could not buy from somebody. so they went around it. They have the highway going around it, and the house loses value because you have just a highway going around it, right? So it was, I mean, basically hurts everyone eventually. Anyway, so international drilling activity, we said the difference between, we talk about IOCs and we talk about NOCs. And I got this idea one time there is also another difference, but in the US, when you say public, this company is public, what do you mean? They mean that this company is publicly traded. That means it's in the stock market. Just like ExxonMobil. It doesn't belong to somebody, it belongs to anyone who has shares in it, like Grandma Jones down the street. ExxonMobil belongs to her if she has shares in ExxonMobil. This is publicly traded. Now, everywhere else in the world, when you say this company is public, they mean this company belongs to the government. That's why Saudi Aramco is a public, well, Saudi Aramco is a bad idea because it also has part of it that is in the stock market now. So, I don't know, well, okay, CHC, I guess, a company in my home country, is a small one. It belongs to the Cyprus Hydrocarbons Company. I think now it entirely belongs to the government, but it's not doing much. It's completely public company. It's not publicly traded, it's government owned, publicly owned. Okay, so big difference.
So let me quickly.
Yeah.
That means public government companies are not traded on stock.
No, it's a different term. Basically, when we say in America, this is a public company, it means that I can go and buy part of it online. Facebook is a publicly traded company. It has shares online. I can go and buy part of it.
You understand what it is? Like NMPT in Nigeria. Now that you people privatized, but we know that it's a public. In Africa, when we say something is public, it means it's government. For US here, when we say something is public,
It belongs
and
to
it's
everybody.
there in there that you can go and have shares over there, everybody public. You can go and buy shares so that you belong to that company. US, that's why.
Yeah, I realized that this is, well, they told me about it before, but I didn't know it's such a big misunderstanding. I was in 2017 Pedro Bowl Regionals, and it was a Mexican team playing. And they asked them, list the 5 biggest public oil and gas companies. And the Mexicans put together a list and said, what did they say? They said Saudi Aramco, blah, 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 Pemex, whatever. They listed companies owned by the government of countries. And they got them all wrong. And the answer was Exxon, Chevron, companies with stock that belong to that as publicly traded. And the judge was a professor from Stanford, I'm not gonna say his name, old guy, rock fluid interactions guy. And he said he was very surprised that they didn't get anything right because they were a very strong team. They were getting everything else correct. And I told him, you know why? Because everywhere outside America, when you say public company, you really mean government owned. And this is how it registered into their minds. Not publicly traded. Well, it was a bad question because whoever wrote it should have specified that.
Because
Subjective.
Yeah, so we come back there because if they can't be able to defend because public in their country where they're from, maybe.
So IOCs, multinational oil corporations active in countries outside of their home. For example, what we call the super majors. There you go, Exxon, Shell, BP, Chevron. usually public, US definition, publicly traded. Well, yeah, the full thing is called publicly traded. The other one is publicly owned. So NOCs, national oil companies. Oil companies that is fully, that are fully, or in majority owned by the government of a sovereign nation. Non-US definition of a public corporation. And I think I have some examples here. CNPC, Pemex, PDVSA, Equinor, Petrobras, etc. So national oil company, IOC. So in the exam, if I ask you to give me an example or explain the difference, you should be able to explain the two differences. NOC is publicly owned. Okay, owned is the keyword. Yeah. IOC is publicly traded. Traded is the keyword. Big difference. Okay. You okay? Any questions? Okay. So now we're gonna start getting more technical. So I always say we talk about drilling. We talk about the Edwin Drake well. It was a cable tool rig, the one that you see in construction places. When you're in a construction place and you hear like a loud boom, and then after 1.5 minutes or something, another boom. That's what they use. They use a cable tool rig. It's something very heavy. It's lifting up and then dropped down and makes a hole underground. Okay. And then these days we use rotary drilling technology for deeper wells, etc., etc. So the wells are very different from each other as we move along, but it's no different than the cars that we drive. Okay. It doesn't matter if you drive a Mini Cooper or a Ferrari or even a semi. They have some things in common, right? They have wheels that rotate and use the friction with the surface of the road to move forward. It's called locomotion. They have a steering wheel to turn to the left and right. They have an engine which converts chemical energy to mechanical energy, basically motion, and the motion is transmitted to the wheels with a gearbox, through a gearbox, okay? Now, it doesn't matter what kind of car you have. It's still gonna use these functions. But the semi would be able to travel slower and transport a bigger mass of load. The sport car would be driving faster, but lighter. It cannot transport as much stuff as the semi, for instance. So same thing with the rigs. They have the same systems that are similar in every rig, but they are different kind of purposes. There are rigs for different kinds of holes, etc., etc. There is rigs for different terrains, different areas, and so on. So what are the functions that every rig has, regardless? There is 5 systems or functions, and these are important. The first one is a power system. You need something to provide you power with. Second rig is a hoisting system, something to lift a heavy load from the ground. Then you have the rotating system, which is to rotate. And you know why you need to rotate? Huh? Yeah. Then the circulating system, to circulate mud throughout the system. You need to have that. I don't care what kind of system how it works necessarily. I care that you have a circulating system of some kind, right? And a well-controlled system to prevent blowouts. We're going to spend a lot of time on that in this class. So just like the cars I said earlier, this is probably the best car ever built, they say. And I have one. That was my first car at home. Not exactly this car, but I had a 99. I still have a 99 Toyota Corolla. And they say it's the best car ever built. It was before the environmental regulations kicked in. So it was a very well designed car. The chassis, the base, and the engine were all designed for each other by a bunch of people with computers in Japan, and they did a very good job. It has excellent grip and very good on the road, whether it rains or it doesn't rain. My mom wants me to sell it, but I do not. And you know why? Because one day they are going to force us to have electric cars. They are going to be turning them off every time if you are mean to somebody on the road, you honk at them or something, and they're going to be like, no car for you for 2 weeks, you know? Anyway, so this is a standard car, right? Standard saloon car, like everybody's car, kind of. You see, isn't it symbolic that my first car was green and I ended up at UND? Anyway, the second car is a car I wish I had. It's a Ferrari. So it moves very fast, right? But it cannot carry the load of the Corolla that you can fit into the Corolla. It has higher torque than the Corolla. The Corolla is, I don't know, 4-cylinder 1.6. And this one is 8-cylinder, I think it's 5.8 or 4.5, something like that. If it's what I think. It's certainly the V8 kind of Ferrari, not the V12. But anyway, it has higher torque and is using it for speed. But it cannot transport the weight that the average car. It transfers less. And the other kind is a semi. So it transports very high loads at lower speeds than the Toyota. So this is the standard, and both these have higher torque. So they are sort of a luxury option and a utility option. And this uses the torque for speed, this uses the torque for load. So different purposes, but look at that, they all have wheels, they all have a steering wheel, they all have a gearbox, their systems are the same. Same thing here. This is a picture of a Ford Model T from the Golden Hotel in Colorado. I took it, I think, in August 2023. If you see, this is the first mass production car. It was mass produced by Henry Ford. This is the Ford T model. And if you see, again, you see the same systems, right? You see the steering wheel, the wheels, you know how it steers to turn, and then you have basically the engine, etc., etc. So even if it's old, doesn't change the way it works. The same systems. Different version, more advanced or less advanced, but it works the same way. Same thing with the rig. If you go to the rig, you will see the hoisting system. The power system is with the green here. Hoisting system is with yellow. That's the, what do you call the derrick of the rig, etc. The rotating system, how does it rotates? And we're going to talk about those. And the circulating system, the blowout prevention system too. So you should be able to recognize these systems in every rig that you go to. I don't care if it's a new rig, an old rig, offshore, onshore. It should have these 5 systems. Modern day rig. I'm not going to go through all the components here. You don't have to memorize them, obviously, but you have to be familiar with the main ones. It can be either rotary rig or a top drive. We haven't got into top drive yet. So this is a rotary rig. It has a, if you see here, where number 9 is, rotating table. This here. This is how rotation is provided. That's why the rig is called rotary rig. But yeah, basically has a lot of components. 1 second, let me erase. It's a set of equipment and machinery located on the drilling site. Normally, the rig is not owned by an oil company. Normally, we said that Conoco has its own rigs for now, for instance. But service companies, drilling service companies like Neighbors, like Transocean, like H&P, like PD, Precision Drilling, etc., etc. It's rent out or leased with its own crew, basically, and you drill and construct the well according to operator specifications. The goal is to drill the planned well in a safe manner, no personal injuries, minimal technical problems, completing it at minimal cost, completing the project at minimal cost. You will have to complete the rig as well, the well as well. Yeah, so it's a more complicated situation now, but again, no matter how complicated the rig it looks, you still have the 5 systems, right? The 5 functions: circulating, rotating, hoisting, power, and blowout prevention and control. So, what about the personnel? Similarly, you are gonna have the same, just like you have the same systems, you have also the same kind of personnel. Okay, you have in land onshore rigs, their boss of the crew leader is a tool pusher. Okay, or the push. That's basically the head of the crew, the head of the rig crew. Okay, the operator has his own person representative there. It's called the company man. And sometimes the operators, they will contract a company man. Like I used to work in a rig that was owned by, sorry, not the rig was Neighbors. The company that listed was a 4-person company from Dallas, all people with money, and they wanted to invest them into oil and gas. The mineral rights belong to the University of Texas, actually. They have a lot of rigs. And a lot of, there is a reason why they have all this land in West Texas, historic reasons. But, of course, these old people from Dallas, they were not able to go to the rigs and be there as a company man. We're talking about 70 people, 70-year-old people, right? So they had they contracted out somebody with experience, and he was there at the rig. And he was basically their employee. He was a contractor. And he was doing, they were going cheap, so they had him do 2 rigs at the same time that were spaced 100 feet apart. So he had a buggy, and he was driving from one rig to another. And they both had problems at the same time. And he was ready to give up, you know? But anyway, the company man is basically his well, okay, de facto. So, second below the tool push on the rig is the driller, who's somebody with experience and does the drilling. Then you have the derrick man. Sometimes you have an assistant driller, but took it out. You may have an assistant driller. And then you have the floorman. And the most experienced floorman is the derrick man. That's the guy who has to climb up the derrick with a harness for safety and help guide the joints into the pipe rack when they are tripping out. And when they are not tripping out, he is responsible for the conditions of the mud, actually.
That's why they call them monkey man.
Monkey board.
Monkey.
Yeah. Monkey board is the board at the top that he's standing. He also has a safety line that he will go down if it has a stopper. It's called the Geronimo line. If there is a fire, for safety, using the Geronimo line. And yeah, if there is a fire or something. So that's the derrick man. Roughnecks are the floormen. One of the toughest jobs probably in the world. But they make a lot of money.
You pay them well.
They pay them well.
But they pay them among all of them who pay well, is it a driller?
Who pays the most?
Yeah.
Oh, the tool pusher. I mean, that's the highest.
Yeah. I see, yeah, but
Well, the roughneck will eventually become a derrick man.
yeah, yeah.
Get out. Roughnecks are generally young people, you know,
Energetic.
high school dropout, got his girlfriend pregnant,
And he needed a job.
no other option. Huh? Roustabout is basically, well, actually, Roustabout is the one that I use that example for, because it's like a young guy and he's doing a job that you don't need training for, like painting, going and collecting a sample. They get a lot of those in the summer because the school is out and the heats are very, very hot in Texas. So it's like, okay, you have to, and you get them like for 3 months, they get some exposure.
They pay well.
No, not roustabout jobs. No.
But they pay more than if you are working in at least if you are working
Yeah, I mean,
in oil and gas sector.
the problem, the good thing is that, not the problem, the good thing is that they are, if you negotiate an hourly rate, and it's a 12-hour shift, after 8 hours, you get paid 1.5 that rate because it's overtime.
Yeah.
So it might sound a small rate hourly, but the total amount of money is a lot, you know? So even if it's like, I don't know, $11 an hour, you can still make like over 4,000 in 2 weeks if you are on it every day, you know? But it's gonna be very tiring. Yeah, we had August 2023. I don't remember what day it was, but it was towards late August. It went over 120 degrees outside Midland, and the roughneck passed out. So they put us in a hotel that night. So it can be very, very tough conditions.
So in a standard rig, how many floormen do you support?
Well, in every shift, you will have 3 at minimum, but you can have. I have seen 2. Making it work with 2, it was a little bit too much though. Offshore, you have more. You can have 4 and 5. You know, it's a lot of stuff. Well, we went on a rig in the field trip that had 2 working on the floor.
Which of the rig? Is it the rig that we went?
Yeah, the first one. It had 2 floormen.
Neighbor?
Was it neighbor? Probably.
Yeah, where all the rigs are on.
I have 3. The one I went to neighbor, they have 3.
Well, that rig had 3, but the one that we went, that I'm talking about, it was 2. I have a picture of it coming up in the slides. I don't think there was a 3rd one. You need 2 because there are some slips. Well, some slips can be picked up by 1 person, but there are some slips you need 2 people to hold it. It's not that easy. So, or moving the tongs, etc., etc. Now, offshore, you have additional crew members, like the offshore installation manager, who is basically takes the place of the tool pusher. He's the head of the rig, and you have marine crew, seamen. You have what do you have? You have catering people. You have the dynamic positioning people whose job is to keep the rig in place, etc., etc. And then what I don't say here, this is just the rig crews. You have in every drilling site more than 100 service companies involved to some extent. Like you have the people doing directional drilling, the mud people, the mud logger, not the mud engineer. The mud engineer is part of the drilling crew. I didn't put him here. I should have, because we have a whole module coming on drilling hydraulics, rig hydraulics coming up. But there is also the mud engineer, and the mud engineer has people working under him. Mud engineer is an experienced guy. He has a bunch of people working under him. And then are they waiting? Okay. They are basically responsible to, he's deciding what the mud should be, what property should have, and then he's gonna make it into layman terms. We need to mix this much on this much, blah, 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 and he's gonna tell his people to do that. So these are the people involved. Additional maintenance stuff. You have people coming in for quality control. You have the people driving trucks with water supply there, and there's always a joke if something goes wrong in the well, whose mistake it is, and we say it's the water hole's fault. You know, it's the guy who brought water, you know, it's the guy who brought the guy in the truck who brought the water. It's an old joke.
Where will the health and safety guy follow?
Huh?
Health and safety guy.
That's the quality control people. Yeah. And a lot of, you have the directional driller, you have the geosteerer, a lot of people involved, service company wise. There might be over 100 service companies, even in onshore rigs, involved in the whole process. So some requirements that the drill site should satisfy is basically you need to have a good space. You have to be compliant with the local laws. Remember, I said in Colorado, there is some areas where if you have 10 houses within a 1 mile radius, you are basically not allowed to exercise the lease, which is ridiculous. But you need to be able to be compliant with the local laws. You have to have adequate water supply, electricity too. Well, not necessarily electricity. There are several ways you may provide your own electricity. But we have been to a well that was working on a high line electricity. So these days it involves primarily digging a rectangular pit called cellar. That's how you start. That will host the bottom part of a substructure underneath the rig floor. This is how you start the operation, basically. You dig that cellar, and then you will house the substructure there. And this is where you will set up your, basically what will eventually be your blood preventer all the way to the rig floor. Sometimes a small truck-mounted rig is used to make the initial hole called the conductor hole. Do we have time for one more slide? Okay. Next to the cellar, the crew will drill a hole, another hole, which is smaller than the conductor hole, and is called the rat hole, and sometimes a smaller hole than the rat hole called the mouse hole. And they are used to store important equipment that we will learn about later on. We put the carry in it when it's not used, and then we also put the next joint. So you know, as you are drilling, you are adding joints of pipe. The next joint you are gonna pick to add to the well is gonna be picked from the mouse hole. Okay, the rat hole is where you put is where you put the Kelly when you are not drilling, basically. It's to store stuff, let's put it this way. Okay, and then offshore, no cellar is used. The conductor pipe is driven into the seabed with its own weight, but it can be jetted to provide structural support for well-controlled equipment. And then we have two terms, rigging up, which refers to installing the rig on the drill site. And once complete, you are ready to spud in or spudding in. SPUD, it has to do with potato, like dropping something heavy. It's from the cable tool era. And that means starting the drilling operation. So rigging up means I'm installing what I need, and then spudding. If we say this well spudded on this day, it means we started drilling on this day. Okay, and then we say to your boss, we rigged up, it means that we installed what we wanted to install. And sometimes you hear that from a service company saying we rigged up. Doesn't mean the whole rigged up. What they are working on. Yeah, like maybe a fiber optics company, they say we rigged up. It means they put their own equipment on. Yeah. Thank you very much. I will see you next week. Have a nice weekend. Thank you, Tito.